Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes here and thank you for joining me for today's random album review. A very long overdue random album review. It feels like it's been forever since I've done an entry in this series, and honestly it kind of has been a very long time, but I'm super excited to get into today's random album review. And I think the album that I randomly pulled off the shelf in the randomized draw is very fitting for today's review. This is an album by one of my all-time favorite bands, and I actually got to see them live for the first time ever at the start of this year, and I actually got to experience this album in full, which was crazy. So it's weird how the universe works, getting to pull this one off the shelf for the random album reviews. But this is one that doesn't really need much of an introduction, and obviously if you've read the title of this video you're going to know what it is, but it is the band Green Day's 1994 album Dookie. Now, as usual with my random album reviews, I'll start off with a little bit of the history with this album and a bit of its background and whatever, and its background with myself. I'll get into my thoughts of the album, go through a few of the songs and track list and whatever, and then of course towards the end of the review I'll give it a rating out of 10, so make sure to stick around for that. Also, let me know your thoughts of Dookie and some of your favourite songs in the comments below. And yeah, I'm super excited to get into this random album review. Like I said, it's been so long, so I apologise for anyone who really likes this series, and you know, it's been such a long time with this one just sitting off to the side, but I'm super excited to get into today's review. So like I said, Green Day's 1994 album Dookie. So today's album Dookie is honestly one that probably doesn't need much of an introduction, because who doesn't know Dookie, who doesn't know Green Day? I'm still going to do that introduction anyway. Green Day, one of the most iconic three pieces in music history ever, like regardless of genres. Everybody knows Billy Joe Armstrong, Mike Dirnt, Trey Cool, and this is one of, if not their most iconic album throughout their whole discography. Dookie is one of, if not the most quintessential pop punk album in history. Like, the way it painted the path for the direction of pop punk, specifically through the 90s and early 2000s, but even to where the genre is to this day. It's also kind of the album that made Green Day the name that they are in the industry right now, and this album is sort of the one that started that legacy and kind of made them household names. For myself growing up, I actually wasn't that high on this album, which might sound really surprising, because if you've seen my channel before and listened to the albums that I talk about, I'm a massive fan of pop punk. It's my favourite subgenre of music, and I still love this album, but like I said, just growing up, it wasn't one that I was insanely high on. There was honestly a lot more that I'd come back to more often. But for me, staple songs like Basket Case and Welcome to Paradise, just to name a couple there, were the ones that kept me aware and occasionally revisiting this album. It wasn't really until like maybe my early mid-teens where this album really gripped me and I realised how solid it was overall, not just the big hits like the couple that I named just then. So weirdly for myself, it's an iffy case of like being nostalgic, but yet it still managed to grow on me and expand my views of the band and their sound over time. It's never, lapsed on me the importance and the legacy of this album though. And if you haven't, researched or heard about the legacy of this album and how it has shaped music, as I said it before, it's definitely shaped pop punk, specifically through the 90s, early 2000s, but just music in general. Like, when this album came out, it just changed the landscape of what was going on, and that legacy still ripples through time to current. So I will say, regardless of everything that I alluded to there in the intro, this album growing on me more and more over time, and the older I got, the more respect I found for the legacy that it paved, just for music in general. I will say I'm probably not as high on this album as a lot of die-hard Green Day fans would be. Like, I still prefer American Idiot over this album, which I know is not blasphemy to say. There are a lot of Green Day fans that do like American Idiot more. But I would say if you gathered like 100 Green Day fans in a room, I feel like the majority would lean more on the side of Dookie. And that might sound like a bit of a shock to people who know my taste in music, because this album is a lot more pop punk sounding compared to American Idiot, which is pretty much straight rock. If you are comparing the two albums, where I will give the higher praise for Dookie over American Idiot is I feel like this album definitely highlights their talents on the instruments a little bit more. As in, when you look at American Idiot, the production is higher. There's a lot of like orchestras and synth thrown in throughout that album, making it feel more theatrical and grand. This one, it's almost like they said vocals, bass, drums, guitar in a studio, go. And it just feels very raw and not saying American Idiot sounds unnatural, but just natural. Like it just sounds like those instruments just going at the wall and everything is done just so well. But like I said, other than the staple songs on this album, a lot of it had to grow on me over time. Even though I was familiar with this track list from front to back, from a very young age, a lot of the back catalogue still had to work its way up for me. It was songs like Pulling Teeth and In the End that worked their ways up for me. Even a staple song, whatever you want to call them, like Longview. Like Longview early on, like wasn't a song I was that major on. That one had to punch its way up the ladder for me, but it's one that has grown on me since I initially had a deeper dive into this album, like I said in my intro, in my early mid-teens. And even though, for me personally, it's the lesser of the two albums that I've just been mentioning, even now, I still have these spurting moments where I listen to this album and I go, it's just so good and it hits on a whole nother level, and again I just gain more and more respect for it. Like I said in my introduction, especially after seeing this album in full live, I saw him play at Marvel Stadium here in Australia on their, I don't know what the tour was called, but they played American Idiot in full, Dookie in full, and just hearing Dookie played from front to back, maybe not in order, but just all the way through, it is just something that it almost felt like an out-of-body experience. I loved every moment of it. Getting into my history of the track list, and you'll kind of realise my flip from back in the day not quite getting the hype for a lot of the lesser tracks on this album to having them grow on me over time. Like the three openers, for example, I kind of clumped together as the entrees before the bangers arrive. I know that sounds kind of harsh, especially considering like these three openers being Burnout, Having a Blast, and Chump. They're all songs that like fans love, but I used to not be so high on them. I was just kind of meh on them. But all three have grown on me over time. The opener, Burnout in particular, has been one that's really grabbed me over the years. Speaking on growing on me, Longview, like I mentioned earlier, at number 4 on the track list. That is like a big fan fave that used to just not hit as hard as it does now for me, but over time it's just become an undeniable banger and one of my favourites off the album. Welcome to Paradise has forever and always will be one of the greatest hits off Dookie, and that's at the number 5 spot on this album. Even though it's an undeniable banger and just will be one of the greatest tracks off this album, it still just finds itself, for me, feeling so underrated. And I know a lot of people are going to be looking at me right now like, Welcome to Paradise, you think that's underrated? I know how much love it gets, but I just swear to God, like it just needs to be loved even more. And then you get to tracks like Pulling Teeth, which I mentioned earlier, is one of the lesser appreciated tracks, but has always worked for me from the very first time I heard it. I've always felt it being underappreciated and having a soft spot for it. Even one of the closing tracks I'll clump into that being In the End. Even though they're different sounding tracks, I've always seen them as sort of lesser tracks on the album that need a lot more love, and I've always appreciated. So getting back into order and continuing the track list from the way that it's laid out, the streak of hot songs does not stop yet, because at track number 7 we probably have the most well-known song off this album, and you could even argue Green Day's biggest hit of all time. There's obviously other songs off other albums you could throw in there, and even other songs off this album, but at track number 7 we have Basket Case, just an undeniable classic and beloved by fans, and there's not really much I can say that's going to add to that. And you know what, I'm going to skip ahead a few songs and also clump in When I Come Around into that category, because it's also a fan favourite, and even if you're not major on Green Day, you definitely know a track like When I Come Around also, so I'm going to clump them in together because nothing I say is really going to add much to what you know about the songs, because they're just great. Now when it comes to underappreciated fan favourites, next up is She, which has never hit the same for me as what I have heard it does for a lot of other people. Like, I respect She. I think it's still a really solid song. I just don't quite like it as much as a lot of other people do. And the remainder of the track list, you have Sassafras Roots, Coming Clean, Enema Sleepus, and FOD / All By Myself. The rest of them sort of fall into a category of myself being good, but they're nothing I'm necessarily gonna write home about. But overall, as I said, as time has gone on with this album, it's one from front to back I've just realised the older I've gotten and the more I've matured and realised this album for truly what it is. It's just one that I've respected and seen how solid it really, really is. And like I said, growing up, I still acknowledged this was a good album and I was aware of the track list from start to finish, but like I said, if it wasn't songs like Basket Case or Welcome to Paradise or When I Come Around or songs like that, I was just kind of like, the rest of it's okay. But this album is really strong from front to back, and I don't think me saying that is going to surprise a lot of people. So if I have to finish on one thing above all else, this is definitely an album that I appreciate. And, I'm not going to say this is an album that I don't like, because I really do love this album. And even if this is an album where the enjoyment comes in waves and it reaches real high highs but then lowers to like sort of a mid-card love, this is still an album that I have no problem coming back to, and I really respect and really enjoy it. And as I said, I can't deny the legacy that it's left on one of my favourite subgenres of music. Well, it is my favourite subgenre of music, being pop punk, and just music in general. Like I said, its impact on the 90s just alone was crazy, but then that impact still ripples forward in music to this day. But then carry over to the current pop culture and the footprint that it's left also in that regard. It's just crazy. So I'm going to wrap up my thoughts of Dookie by Green Day and finish off giving it a score. I know this score might seem real low, and I'm prepared for people to pull out the pitchforks and torches in the comments, but I'm going to give Green Day's Dookie from 1994 a 7.5 out of 10. I know that might seem low, but as I said, it sort of comes in waves. Most of the time, that wave really turns into a fucking tsunami, and I'm like, yeah, this album is fucking awesome, and I find like a whole new love for it again. But as I said, growing up, it wasn't one that really hit as much as a lot of other albums of that time did. But it's still an album that I love, majorly respect. It's crazy. I've also done a review of American Idiot, and I said crazy because, as I said, I do my random album reviews literally random. I go through my shelf, random number generator, and whatever I get, I pull out. And I know I always have my movies behind me, so it's really easy to tell how many movies I have, but I have a shit ton of albums as well, like in the hundreds easily. So it's just crazy that I've done, I don't know how many random album reviews. I'm guessing somewhere around 20, probably a little less. And I've pulled out two of Green Day's best albums, Dookie and American Idiot. One day I should do a album collection shelf by shelf. I've done a shelf by shelf for my movies, and that was a very popular series. So I wonder how my shelf by shelf for music will go. Maybe that's something I'll do in the next coming months if I find time, or I'm a little bit bored and want to change it up. But either way, guys, I know you guys are probably sitting there going, what the fuck, he said he loves this album and he's given it a 7.5 out of 10. I gave American Idiot like an 8.5. That should have been higher, and I'm sure, could be 2 hours from now, 2 days from now, whatever, I'm like, Dookie should have been higher. But I can adjust those ratings down the track, and ratings are stupid anyway, but opinions change over time. You go from loving something to realizing, maybe it wasn't as good, or vice versa. You're like, it's not that great, but then, the more you listen to it or watch it, if it's a movie, opinions change, so it doesn't really matter. But 7.5 for today, reviewing Dookie by American Idiot by Green Day. Thank you for watching this video. If you watched it the whole way through, let me know your thoughts of Dookie in the comments below. Let me know some of your favorite tracks. I will also be doing a track list ranking of Dookie, where I have the entire track list and I rank it from my least favorite song to favorite song, so check out that video as well. I'll link it in the description below if I remember to do so, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.